All right, ladies and gentlemen, fellow decoders around the world, wherever you may be, my name is Logan, and this is Decode Your Reality, and today we're going to be breaking down and decoding the Eye of Shalom Ra. Eye of Shalom Ra decoded. What is that all about? Well, if you know the language, you know what it means. Those are Hebrew words. And we're going to talk about what this graphic means here. On the right, you have destruction. On the left, you have creation. The Eye of Shalom Ra decoded. Get yourself strapped in, get buckled in, folks. This one's going to be a fun ride. So let's break this sucker down, shall we? So I want to start off by putting the flower of life, the basic 7 circles for the flower of life. Okay. And you can see how I had the eye created like an animal, the slit there, right? Because the eye of God, the eye of Shalom Ra, is a predator. And animals essentially are predators, right? They're known predators. I mean, human beings can be too, obviously, but animals are just following instincts. But this flower of life is absolutely massive. I've decoded it. This is my 5th time doing it. And the material I'm about to show you is going to really blow your mind here. So why I have this decode called Shalom Ra is because in the Old Testament, in the Torah, in Isaiah 45 verses 7, not the Torah, it'd be the Old Testament, excuse me. Torah is just the first 5 books. The Old Testament, Isaiah 45 verses 7, where the Lord says, I make peace and evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. I create light and darkness. Well, when you do the research on these words, I have them up here. The word for good or peace is shalom. It's a greeting that you give, right? If you're someone who's Jewish, maybe you say shalom or see you later. But the opposite of that is Ra. Ra. Right? It's Ra. And that can mean the calamity, right? Misery, the brutal suffering of life. And this is peace and evil. And you notice the numerology at the top there. Using the full Hebrew, right? Double digits, no reduction down. 88. What is 88? Ra. Right? It's going to be Ra, folks. It's going to be pi. It's going to be Ra. It's going to be the golden ratio. That's why I have this called the Eye of Shalom Ra. And why I have on the right destruction and on the left creation. Because that's what this alludes to. Isaiah 45 verses 7. It doesn't say there's any deviation away from I'm going to hand it off to something else. Like I do all these things. Okay? So that's what we're going to start with. And this is really where it's at. Is we start with the observations of pi. And pi is time. It's a wheel. It moves time. And 3.14 is such a big monumental number just because my last name is Payet, but you could see through the Greek where it came from. Like pi originated from the Greek language. And pi, when you say it, is a 27. It's a 1710. And that matches the Alpha and Omega. The beginning and the end, which is an aspect of time. God is time. Well, that's tied to the eye, right? The all-seeing eye watching over us, right? So, these are the topics that I'm going to discuss for this presentation, folks. We're just going to strictly use numbers. So we're going to use mathematical equations. The first one, 3.14. The second one, square root 1.41. And the golden ratio in the third position. right? So let's jump into 3.14 pi. And let's talk about that again. It being a measurement of time, everything happening through time. And why I'm starting off here is because this is an important layer to establish as we move forward into this decode. I want you to consider what I'm showing here. Notice that I'm using just Chaldean with this example. And these big words in our vocabulary: matrix, life, the word fish, the word story. These all equal the number 17, yin yang. I make peace and evil in the matrix. That's life. And you have the God of the Old Testament, or the God of the Bible, if you will, the Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh, being a match to that. All in Chaldean numerology. And these all reduce down to the number 8. And the number 8 is the prison, the torus field, right? The infinity symbol. And we could go on with that. But I'm starting here because when we get into the 3.14, we're going to talk about the perfect circle. A 360-degree circle, that's really where it's at for the 3.14. Is that if you unfold this, actually, let me just go and show you what I'm talking about here. This is a very simple and easy diagram or video to show you how the circle, as you unroll it, you'll see that it starts to form these golden spirals, right? And it lays it all out, right? That's the circle. So it makes all the shapes, sacred geometry shapes, et cetera, and that's what it looks like when you unravel that circle. And this is time. This is time moving into the direction that it goes into, however that looks, right? And it has a lot to do with Ra, because Ra comes from the Latin word called radius. It's even tied to the elbow. The radius, because of the bone in your arm, which kind of looks like a compass. But anyway, you could see that the 17 is a match to the word circle. And it matches matrix. It matches life, story, Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh. Okay? The Ra, the pi, the 360-degree circle. And when snipped and cut, it ends up becoming the 3.14. And you can see when you do the alchemical aspect of the neutrons, protons, and electrons of radium, radius, 88 plus 226, you get 3.14. Okay? That's what you get. You get 314. I just put the decimal in there. 314, folks. How about that? Really, really fascinating, right? So I'm going to now go into chemistry more to show you how amazing this reality that we live in is designed around. Amazing. We could take the elements on the periodic table that make up pi. It's not the first time I've shown this. Lithium and silicon. Lithium, now keep in mind, lithium is your brain, right? They give lithium to people that have bipolarism. I think we're all a little bipolar. But lithium has to do with the brain, and silicon has to do with the future. When you take the brain and the future and you combine them together, what does that spell out? Creation. We create, Ra creates through us, the Egyptian sun god. That's why there's the paintbrush here, right? Because they're alluding to the fact that this is the architect of the universe in a way. But when you add up 7 and 28, when you do the molar mass, as they call it in science, you get 35. And what is 3 and 1.4? 35, right? It's 35. And then you can go even deeper and you can see that this is where we get the simulation from, because that's what we're in, where it's being run and operated. Long before we got here, it was already run. And you get spit out and you're now having your screenplay through. This is time, as I just showed. And the 17th element, chlorine, tied to matrix, circle, and radius, has that isotope 35. It's 34.96, but it's going to be 35. And the 17 is the 7th prime number, which is where you get your 7 chakras and the light spectrum. And 7 is the 4th prime number, which gets the 4 blood types. Starting to see how all this works. It's so beautiful. Just with the 3.14 and the radius and the 17. Okay. And you being the star of the show. I went back and I looked at my first Vesica Pisces decode. And this is what I would encourage you to go watch again if you want to. But, there's so many ways to look at this sacred geometry and the patterns, and perhaps the 2 eyes. Of course, these are the fish, right? Fish being 17. Our eyes look like fish. We are made up of primarily water. Fish, water, pretty much. It's an easy thing to take into consideration here. And you have the 88 here, right? 2 eyes. You have the 88. You have the 8 right here. I mean, there's so many different patterns you can look at here with this. So let's get into the second topic now. This is why I created this video, by the way. Today, I had a breakthrough moment, and I can't even for the life of me remember what was thrown at me. But see, obviously, us as decoders, years and years ago when I started, it was the 3.141 pi, and I've always been saying that and using that. And then when I branched off and went into the 3.144, well, I found that from the great Jane Academy. I kind of stopped using the 141, but it's still there. It's still being used. But what is this? Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is, as you know, the prison, right? It's tied to the prison. You could spell out prison. And there's the 141, 59 being the 17th prime number, 17 being the circle, right? So this is all connected now. But we allude this to be pi. And I have said that for so long. But when I found today that it's tied to square roots, the square root of 2 is 1.41. And this is seemingly what we're trapped in, is a dualistic reality. Duality. So 2, the square root of 2, duality, is that 141, which is the prison. See, this is the Roman numeral 2, right? Gemini can be the 3 because Gemini through tropical can be the 3rd zodiac sign. This is why you heard me say this so much, that this represents Gemini and the twins. But obviously, this is the Roman numeral 2, and 2, the square root of it, is 141. This is the icon chosen for that 59th element. So now we have a deeper understanding of and a lens to look at this. But now what I want to talk about is, and why I made this video, because of this find of the square root. But what's the square root of 3? Why the 3? Because when you do the square root of 3, it's the measurement of the Vesica Pisces. It's right here, the calculator, right? The measurement, when you do the measurements of this, it's 265 tall, 153 wide. This is your fish story right here. This is a fish. And you get 1.73. And that's, you can even go the 1.7, right? If you round it, it's the 1.7, and you still have that link to the radius, which is the circle, which is the matrix. Because it's all circles. It's all round, right? But we box that thing in. Of course, you have all these shapes of NFL football. So many shapes there. But now when you start to do the fun stuff, you can see how laughable it really is. This hat is called the miter hat. And this guy probably is from Detroit because he's got that big-ass OG cross around his neck. Big shout out to all you people from Detroit. Maybe he's a freestyle rapper. I don't know. But anyway, there's the miter, the fish hat. And that's, and I had said for a long time, when they stop wearing these, you'll know that the age of Pisces is over. But I'm redacting that statement because I think that this just means the Vesica Pisces. And of course, the fish and all that kind of stuff. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, but this is kind of fun right here, right? No accident there. But now what I want to do is do some chemistry with this. with this formula, right? That you've probably never seen before, right? Just simply connecting the dots. I'm just simply connecting what I can with the tools in my toolbox. So I'm going to take the element Rutherfordium, which has the isotope 265. And the guy that discovered this he's a big deal, Ernest Rutherford. Go study him, big deal, all about the photon, the discovery of that, right? We're talking about light now, right? Ra and light, all right? Okay, so it's here, the length, and then we have the width, the fish, and we get the 63rd element called europium. And now you get into Europe, where Jesus Christ came from. Europe, the European countries, the Roman Catholic Church, the Greeks, Europe, right? That's why he's all over the churches everywhere. And that 153, if you are studying theology, this is how many fish that him and the apostles caught when they threw their boats on the right side, their nets on the right side of the boat, which I'm assuming they're alluding to the subconscious mind, not the conscious mind. Conscious mind, 10%, subconscious, 90%. I would think they'd be probably talking about that, but that's for a different story. But there you go. And what happens when we add those up, right? So we have the measurements, the square root of 3 to measure this Vesica Piscis, but then when we convert it into alchemy, we have the weights here, which we're going to do, but now the protons, it's the 167. How big of a number this is. Why? Well, because it's tied to Isaiah 45 verses 7. The full verse in Hebrew, where it originally came from, the origination of it is 167. And this is all about peace and evil. It's all about the yin yang. It's all about the Vesica Piscis. And now we have a clear link to Ra as well. So we were like, what is Ra? Well, we know through the Egyptian it's the sun god, but is it more than that? I think so. Now, what happens if we go deeper with this Ra and tying it to the 167? Well, consider that the number 457 is the 88th prime number. And 88 is the protons for radium, which is Ra, which is radius, which is the circle. And remember what scripture this is? Isaiah 45 verses 7. How about that? So there you go. I make peace and evil. I make Shalom and Ra. Now Ra is the evil part of it, right? But then you can go into the cosmology of Hinduism and Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Brahma and Shiva, those fit in here as well. And Soph, we're going to get into all that stuff here in a little bit. But now let's actually weigh up. Let's do the molar mass of these two elements and add up the dimensions, the square root, just the numbers that we get of this Vesica Piscis, which is the eye of Shalom Ra. It's the eye of God. Well, you get the 418, right? And there is no element that has the 418, but we can look for elements that have that, and one of them is the 74th element called tungsten, otherwise known as wolfram, the wolf, the big W, right? If you watch my Superstars Decoded, the big W, right? It's a mad, 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 mad world, the big W. And you can see that its most abundant isotope is 184, which is a permutation of the 418. This is a big deal because it's got 74 protons. How big the 74 is, the mirror is the 47, scripted reality is 47. But where do we go from here to get more of a clue? Well, how about here? How about we go to our two base pairs? How about we go to our, I almost said two base pairs of our DNA, the 5 elements that make up DNA and RNA. Hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus. These are the 5 primary that make up the deoxyribonucleic acid and the ribonucleic acid, which is the messenger of the deoxyribonucleic acid. And you add up, you do the molar mass of these, And the trusty calculator spits out that 74. And just like that, we have the connection to tungsten. Right? The light bulb. They used to make filaments with tungsten. So the so below is the light bulb, the as above is the sun, and then all the other stars that are involved with that. There you go. Tied to the Vesica Pisces, tied to the eye of Shalom Ra. Right? The eye. The all-seeing eye, folks. Light. And the so below becomes man, spirit into matter. Absolutely mind-blowing this stuff is. And then you can even take a look at the DNA, which fits right in here, folks. Go back here. Here is the Vesica Pisces, which, of course, as you know, the flower of life is here in the background. And when you take the DNA, it goes right over it. There's the fish bladder, right? That's why I have said that you are Jesus. You're having a Jesus Christ superstar experience. You're a man, Adam. Adam and Jesus are both 18, folks. Okay? That's where we come from, through that story. Not saying it's absolute, it's a story. But these mathematical equations are written into the context, written into the fabric of how this reality works. And the DNA is right there. And the DNA is right there. The 5 major elements that make up DNA and RNA is tungsten, 74. And there's the DNA right over the Vesica Pisces. Okay? You can't miss it. It's simple. NFL football is there. There's your eyeball. But now you know. And this makes up the Jesus-Lucifer aspect because they're both tied to the aspects of light. Good cop, bad cop, if you want to go that route. Double helix is 46. Jesus and Lucifer is 46. You can also spell out I am God doing the neutrons, protons, and electrons. Shown this a couple times already. You end up becoming the number 740. You just drop that 0 and you get, tungsten. I am God. This is why, I'm a huge fan of Alan Watts. And Alan Watts says in many of his lectures, we're all incarnations of God. Can't be any other way. Because everything is from that aspect, whatever that may be. And it has to be both good, bad, and ugly. Right? I'm just not a fan of the suffering and the pain, like you aren't. But it's part of the process here. Right? But that's how beautiful this is. So let's get into the next topic, the golden ratio now. The golden ratio. And the golden ratio obviously fits several different ways into those circles, the radius, the Rahs, right? You can fit it here. Even the Mandelbrot set will fit here. You can lay it over this way, and you can have it from the 2 circles. There's the Vesica Pisces right here. Several ways you can do it. And when you add them all on, you now have this eye of Shalom Ra with the kitty slit right there, right? The tiger's eye. This is a predator. And it's so interesting because when you take the circles and measure them, now there has to be 2, right? Remember duality, 2. You move these 2 circles together, the MasterCard symbol, and now you have 2 360-degree circles. What's 360 times 2? 720. So I go to the golden ratio, and I look for that 720, and I got to go 40 digits, including the 1 point, to get to that 720. So essentially 40, 39, and 38, or 39, 38, and 37 if you don't use the 1 point as the starting point. But the total addition is 197, which is gold. So you have the Vesica Pisces, which is the eye of Shalom Ra, the eye of Ra, the eye of God. And it's gold. It's a gold harvester. It harvests for gold. It's essentially the sun. It's the architect. It's all that stuff. And we even bring in Kabbalah, and it's Ensof. Ensof is a 720. See it? Right here. 720. Ensof. Gold. Ra. That's why arguing and debate, it's a Ponzi scheme. The whole thing. That's not being negative, by the way. That's absolute respect, because that's attributing to an origin, a source that owns it all. It's everything. It's all of it. Essentially, even Ra is the law of one, and it says everything is one, which permeates from the one. then it becomes separate, which is cell division. So I'm not you and you're not me, but we are made from the same biological system, right? So we're having our own journey by way of the one. And the voice in your head has to be tied to this. So we have Ein Sof here. 27 is so fascinating because even I have a decode I haven't even really come out with yet on Ride the Lightning, part 2. And Metallica had the album that came out on July 27th, and it's currency. Lightning is currency. And 27 is the reduction of Ein Sof, which is the aspect of before the Spirit of God moved across the waters. Ride the Lightning. Covered this. Ride the Light is the name of the decode that I did. Ein Sof. Kabbalah. Right? Kabbalah. So this 1.61 is very interesting. The markers, it's all over this thing. If I keep placing circles there. But how about these two dudes? Bernard and Arthur. Who are these guys? Well, in my beast decoded, I covered it. These two guys were responsible for discovering papyrus number 115, which was an artifact that claims that the great beast was not 666, but 616. And their birthdays. This guy was born first. So I started with the 16 and then the 1, and you get the golden ratio. And these guys discovered an artifact claiming that the great beast is not the 666, but the 616. From the golden ratio, from the circles. So now you know what the great beast is. I'm going to talk about that some more. Check out my beast decoded again. Maybe you need to watch it and refresh yourself on it. And then if you're a Patreon member, big shout out to my Patreon members, I got the beast too that's been out on there, which had even more information. So really, is this kind of what it could look like? And again, this was a humdinger here, right? And I know that there are more numbers that can be involved. Absolutely. So this is very loosely based is what I'm showing you here. But I thought that the connections were very, very vivid and they were uncanny. And I just thought it was worth showing you. That when you add up pi, the golden ratio, and the square root, okay, the measurement of a circle, the golden spiral, and then the square root of 2, duality, you get the great beast. You get this. You get 6 zodiac signs on the right, on the top, 6 on the bottom, and 1 in the middle, which is Jesus in the middle. And it's tied to Ra, the 616. And does that zodiac wheel sit in the middle? I mean, you can see that if I place it over your eye, that this is a vesica piscis, right here, the eye, right? Which is your DNA, the double helix. And I feel that the zodiac wheel is harvesting energy. It's trying to control you. And this is how you see the world. Depending on where the clock is and the time and what zodiac signs are, where they are in transits and all the stuff that goes into astrology. But I really feel like that's the case. And when I did the Beast Decoded, showing that the 6 apostles on the left and the 6 apostles on the right with Jesus in the middle being the one, the Neo character, you had that 616 Beast connection. And that's because I had, for a long time, like, no, it's 666, which 666 still has. It's saying all this, but that's carbon, right? The beast below, but the beast above is tied to the Ra of Shalom. The eye of Shalom Ra. It has to be. And again, it's the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's why it's Shalom, which is good, and Ra, which is evil. It's both. And the 616 appeared at that 879, 880 digit, and this 880 is Ra. 88 is Ra, and Jesus is tied to Ra. Right? Which is evil. It means evil. Right? So this is why, I know that this story is so bulletproof for so many people because it alludes to the opposite, which is evil. So you wouldn't want to pick that. But then you have all these rituals and eating these wafers and drinking this stuff and doing all this stuff. And why do I got to do that? Why are you making it so complicated? Just be a good dude. Be a good girl. right? But no, see, when the church gets involved, man, again, I told you the game needs players. To me, the rituals, not interested in that. For me, right? But again, I have respect for the eye of Shalom Ra, because if this is the way it works, well, it's the good, the bad, and the ugly with this. And the zodiac wheel, if you're willing to do an interpretation on your chart, you're going to see that the characteristics that you carry around are absolutely so accurate, scary accurate with the zodiac wheel, right? Very, very accurate. So, getting to the tail end of this, ladies and gentlemen, the 616, the great beast, found from the addition of those big three, pi, golden ratio, square root. Square root being the big humdinger here, because it is the prison and the duality, right? The square root of 2 is 1.41. When you add them up, you get the great beast, 616. And when you say that in Greek, this is the value of Greek and Hebrew. I can't say 616. You can't say some of these things like you can in the Greek, right? You can't, like 616, and then you can't say A or B. It's just A or B. So the value in the languages of the classical periods, you were able to say it's the letters of the alphabet. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, this is 616, iota, chi, and sigma. I think that's sigma. Stigma. So chi, iota, stigma. Go look up what the word stigma means. Remember, this is time 14. Go research stigma. Chi, iota, stigma. 616. 34. Reduces down to the number 7. But isn't it interesting that 2 circles, you got to do 2 of them, is 34. It's 34. So that's why this has so much inspiration in the churches and in the Vatican, the St. Peter's Square and all that. You got the big phallus in the middle, right? The key, because it's harvesting energy is what it's doing. Okay. That's what I think it's doing anyway. But here's where it gets interesting, right? From the numbers and mathematics, is that 616 is the 16th heptagonal number. Heptagon meaning 7. 7. Remember, there needs to be 7 circles to make a flower of life. One of them, 7. That's how big the 7 is. And what is 88 reduced down to? The number 7. So it's just fascinating that the 616 tied to the great beast is the 16th heptagonal number, and heptagon is the 7-sided polygonal, and 7 is the reduction of the 88. And the card that talks about Ra is the freaking Tower card. Destruction, which can mean creation as well, or wiping the board, right? But how fascinating is this, that it's that way? The 16, and you can see, like going back to my Kabbalah decoded, the Spirit of God inside of you. The Spirit of God moved across the face of the waters. Genesis 1 verses 2. Spirit in Hebrew, and where it came from, is a 16. So you can see it's like the lightning, right? The lightning coming out of the phallus, representing ejaculation, spiritual, and it representing the flash of creation. And this 16 is tied to the Tower card, folks. And the 16 numbers that make up the heptagonal line. Absolutely fascinating. So Ra reduces down to the number 7. Spirit reduces down to the number 7. And the 7th card in the tarot is the Chariot. Woo! Let's take a ride on the Chariot, the fast-moving Chariot, because the Chariot represents spirit. It's got the dualistic sphinxes here. Ride the lightning. You see these, when lightning comes down, this main bolt, it branches off, and you can see like here, whoop, there's a perfect one right there. It branches off into 2. And there's your snake's tongue, by the way. The snake's tongue is a fork, and there it is, the serpent, light. Serpent is 16. Oh, it is, folks. The word serpent in Hebrew is the number 16. Or Greek, one or the other. Greek or Hebrew. But there's the snake's tongue. You see it now, the lightning? It's light. I did the decode on the serpent. It's tied to light. Light, folks. Light. That's how badass this is. So, when you go deeper with this, with the radium, to kind of get to the tail end of this, the chariot rides the sky. This card sits in the house classically of Libra, which holds the scales of justice, which is the two sphinxes here. Again, the scales of justice, right? And radium reduces down to the number 7. The 7th card is the chariot. The 7th letter in the Greek is zeta, which is a 37 when you spell it out, and that's tied to eye in the sky. The eye in the sky is tied to Ra and the chariot and fast moving and light. This is why it's yellow behind this chariot. Rubidium gets the nod for the picture. Go to the periodic table. Oh, where's my periodic table? Rubidium, there's the photo sent. There's the all-seeing eye right there. You can't miss it now. I mean, it's so obvious, right? It's so freaking obvious. But now you know, these are all clues. And if I do the breakdown of the Hebrew, the 7th letter, it's called Zayin. And that becomes the 157. Becomes the 13. 13 is the death card. That's because Ra represents evil. So you got to start to look at this. Shalom is peace or good, and Ra is evil. And that's the Isaiah 45 verses 7. The eye of Shalom Ra. The eye of God. Right? Death. Zayin. I mean, when you go there, when you look at this, you go back to the Phoenician. Now, check this out, folks. Here is Zayin, okay? Zayin for Hebrew. You notice that the origin is from the Phoenician, and there's the eye of God. Eye. Right? But what you'll see is, what is the definite, what is it from the Phoenician? It means weapon. It means weapon. Folks, when we have the destruction going on. Weapon. Ra is evil. Right? I make peace and create evil. Well, there you go. Death, Zayin, 37, eye in the sky. You can't. It's not even mistaken. This is all so right there. We're there, defining this weapon, and even the subtleties. We have the jumbling of the 157 and the 175, and that's the 64th element, which is the GD element right there, the 157. Right? It's so amazing. And it's the 7 colors of the rainbow. That's why we have 7 chakras. 7 is the 4th prime number. 7 is tied to the number 17. 17 is tied to the number 59. Okay? That's how big this is. Zayin and Zeta. And the 7th letter in English is the G. And now you know how big the G is, which sits in the middle of the Masonic square and compass. Okay? Because it represents the number 7. Which represents Ra. Shalom Ra. So the last couple things I want to show you, folks, is that even this has gotten my attention. I started looking at this about a couple weeks ago. Popped into my head, Mayan stuff. I covered this in my How to Decode Yourself first video. But now when you look at this thing, man, this is the beast. I've placed it over the Vesica Pisces here, and this wheel. And the best rendition of it that I could find, I'm going to leave it in the description here. I think it's right here. Yeah. So when you watch this thing right here, let me get the volume off. It's pretty amazing, right? And this is the zodiac wheel, 13. It's got 13. It's got 13 signs here, and then you got 20, and you know what, folks? You know what this is? Really? It's tied to the Vesica Pisces, absolutely, and tied to the eye of God. It's a clock. It's exactly what this is. Because this is time. And the circle and 17 and life and the story and the matrix, the matrix, the matrix is the womb right here. Now you know. And it's a clock. I'll leave this so you can watch this. It's a short video. It's a clock. Look where I stopped at 7 minutes and 20 seconds. Didn't do that on purpose. That's NSOF. So now you know what's using me, folks. Okay? It's a clock. This is a clock. Time. And it's mechanical. That's what it is. And I think this is my last slide. Yeah. So I had this drafted up like this is the flower of life in a 363-dimensional ball. And is it possible that we live inside this thing? I mean, what came to mind for me as a kid, I went to Disney World in Florida and I went to a place called Epcot Center. And that's what came to my mind. And I know that that's what they're probably alluding to. But all these Vesica Pisces, these are all eyes watching from the outside in. And this alludes to the dome, the cracking of the dome, the sky falling down, which could happen. This could be right here. This could be an Archon-built matrix that's designed to harvest energy. And it'll eventually get broken and we'll be free. And that's what the movie The Matrix was talking about. And the Oracle and the Architect. So there's so many ways to kind of talk about this. But I really feel like this could be. And you get the 64-star tetrahedron. I mean, there's so many geometrical shapes. But is this the way it is on this? The clock. It's on a clock and it's housing this. It's housed inside of this and everything else. But I really feel like that's the case. So now you know, ladies and gentlemen. Just remember what the Ra means. I mean, I got this big decode coming out. All these amazing slides. Just remember what it means. It means peace and evil. And Ra means the evil and distress and calamity. Okay? And the opposite of shalom. So this is where you're going to choose. Which one do you want? Well, some of you are like, neither. Because you can't have one without the other. If you get the peace, you got to have the evil. So that's duality, right? So you're like, I don't want to be in a dualistic environment anymore. Right? I don't want any of that. And the law one is about graduation. You're either service to self or service to others, and you graduate and you move to a higher density or a lower density, or you stay in the same density. That's the raw material. Now, I don't know if that's true. That's a topic of conversation. But if it's the law one is involving duality, well, then how would you get out of duality and not be in the law one material anymore? Well, this may come down. I don't know. I'm just speculating. But ladies and gentlemen, we'd love to hear what you saw. I got that big Ra 88 decode coming out, so stick around for that. This one to me was very eye-opening, no pun intended. But now you know. You have the eyes to see, no pun intended. But we'd love to hear what you saw, no pun intended. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate each and every one of you. Big shout out to all the Patreon members, all the support. Appreciate all of you. Appreciate everybody on the YouTube channel as well. All the years of support have come this far. But anyway, leave your comments down there. Just leave them cordial. That's it. Don't have to agree, but keep them cordial. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I got for today. My name is Logan for Decode Your Reality. Until next time, we will see you later.